Let's get started. We have all our participants here. All right. Thank you all for coming and for your patience to the audience. All right. So this is the Reverie Roundtable, which we have Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. We have an amazing group of individuals here. Excited to have them. So we'll start by introducing them. Start with my man Wiggle. He's in first position. He shouldn't be in first position. Okay, we'll ignore Wiggle for now. We'll go to Scott. Scott, thank you for coming through. Thanks for being a part of all this. Scott,
yeah.
How are you?
Doing great. First night back. Co-host moved in. We're gonna fucking make this a full-time thing, I think. What are you doing, Mark? Say hello. Where do you go? Where'd you go? There he is. Why do you not want to be on camera? You're a fucking Twitch stream. What are you talking about? All right, anyways, so I'm Scott from Fabian Liberty. You'll see me doing the debates and stuff, but we're a duo stream, anarcho-capitalists, and do a bunch of different type of content and fun stuff. So come check us out.
Hey, thank you. Next we'll go to Half Baked Takes, right? Half Baked Takes. Thank you. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Prime, for having me on again. I really appreciate you always having me. I'm Happy Takes, your friendly neighborhood enlightened centrist. I post discussions to YouTube and stream to Twitch occasionally, maybe more in the future. You can find me on Twitter. Sub and donate to Prime while we're on here tonight. And thank you all the other guests. Excited to talk to you.
Okay, all right. Next we'll go to because she's not ready. Not so erudite. I love going to people who aren't actually ready. Could you hear us?
I can hear you. Yeah, I was just grabbing something.
So erudite, back with us. You were here last week for something. Right?
Monday, I think. Or maybe the week before. I don't know.
I don't know. It's Twitch streamers. None of this means anything. It's just all blurs into one. Anyway, Erudite, I'm excited. However many times you've been here, maybe 1,000. I don't know. Erudite,
I actually run your channel. This is my channel.
Yeah, well, there you go. It makes sense, right? It'll be more successful that way. Tell a little about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I'm your fellow average Canadian. So I'm excited to weigh in on this Canadian topic. I just recently started streaming. I tend to focus more on like socio-cultural stuff, psychology, mental health, kind of living life well stuff. But then I also have been dabbling my toes into politics because you can't resist getting outside of your scope, right? But to be fair, I never claim professional expertise in political sphere, so I won't do that here either. So yeah, thanks for having me, Prime.
Okay, so I like erudite, so I'm going to ignore that Canadian comment. That didn't happen because good people can't be Canadians. All right, let's go to Joe Lewis. Joe Lewis, MVP. We call him that for a reason. Joe Lewis is back here. Joe Lewis, how are you?
Yeah, no, I'm doing well. Thanks for waiting up. I didn't think it was a little complicated, so I'm sorry about the time discrepancy, but yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. Topic is pretty solid, so hopefully things will be productive and good.
Yeah, and no worries, Joe. You're worth waiting for, right?
Wiggle, I
don't know.
You never waited for me.
We would have started.
You never waited for me.
If it was Wiggle, we would have started early. We would have started 2 hours early. He would have showed up. No, no, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much. All right, next we got Stardust. Stardust, who has been in my DMs. Stardust has been very angry with me.
What is that supposed to mean?
I mean, you've been very angry with me.
I haven't been mad at you. What are you talking about?
You've been highly annoyed with me the entire time.
I haven't even been annoyed with you. I just am sad that you're not paying attention to me anymore. You just never say hi. Never acknowledge that I exist anymore. Jeez, Prime. Okay, hi
Sounds familiar,
everybody. I'm Stardust. Yeah, sounds really familiar, doesn't it? Why are you ignoring me, Prime? Why are you ignoring me?
I have nothing but love for you, Stardust.
I don't believe you.
Let's make this the panel topic. This is
You
far
hurt
more
me very
interesting.
badly. You hurt
But
me
you
very
see,
badly.
Erudite came along and I was like, oh, well, I had the one lady for the for the reverie. So
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
always blame me when in doubt. That's a simple solution.
Yeah. Well, it's always blaming another woman, isn't it? This is the nerve of these people, really. My name is Stardust. I do politics streams. I'm also the #2 Power Wash Simulator streamer on Twitch, and also I do panels as well. I host Chaos Cast every Saturday, where I ask you whether you'd rather frick your mom or your dad. So yeah, check me out.
She's a bundle of fun. Seriously, check her out. Okay, a tiny bundle of fun. Moving on. Wick, thank you for coming back. We love Wick. Wick was on the open a little while ago, but like, hey guys, I'm a big fan of Wick, right? Wick's opinions annoy the shit out of me. But I'm a big fan of Wick as a person. He's a nice guy. I'm happy to have him here. Thanks for coming back. I know things have been difficult for you, but you make some time again for the community, and the community appreciates it. So especially since your best friend in chat, Boji, she has been ecstatic. She's been DMing me constantly about the love she has for you, right? And your beard, and your face, and your voice. She loves it all.
Well, it's good to have fans. It's good to be back. It's good to be welcome back. I know I kind of had to just ghost everyone for a while, but had to deal with shit. Real life's important, and this goes for everyone. If you are having issues in real life, that's far more important than anything on here. So deal with that instead. That's the healthy way to go about it. That said, I am very glad to be back here. I'm very glad to be back in this space. I'm going to try to once again become a presence of some sort, or at least let my voice be heard. And so I'm not streaming again yet, but soon you can find me at my channel Death of Certainty, and that's what I'm about. Death of Certainty. To realize that no matter how certain we are of things, we might be wrong. And to just have that in mind. And I've talked to most of you before. Like I dressed up as a dog on Stardust Chaos Cast panel once and yelled at Bobby and Scott for a while, about puppy supremacy. And that's the only kind of supremacy I'll ever support is puppy supremacy. But it's good to be here. I'm excited for these topics. I'm glad to have this discussion. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Wow. Next we have our Dark Lord and Savior Doobie back with us once again. Ecstatic to have me literally every time, because Doobie is good times. So Doobie, tell a little about yourself.
I'm Doobie, and I'm a nice person.
Hey,
and I'm not a racist. And fuck you, Boj. Wick is cool.
Wick is cool. I think that's it, right? Are we done? I think we're done. No.
That's it.
Oh, also Wiggle. Wiggle is here. Wiggle, fantastic mod. Seriously, he actually does a lot for the community. So shout out to my man Wiggle. Wiggle is here with us. How are you doing?
Not a compliment, man. Like, I don't want these people to know I'm a mod, so it's embarrassing, Like, they don't look at our kind well here, man. Around these parts, like, a mod is like looked down upon. It's like you're a second-class citizen. It's like if I tell someone I'm a mod, it doesn't mean it's not a good thing. They'll look down at me like, ugh, you're willing to do that, So please, like, relax. But other than that, like, yeah, it's nice. I'm actually in rare spirits. I'm actually doing pretty good. Normally these panels are at a time period where it's like I'm either really hungry or like I slept incorrectly or some shit. And for some reason today, like, I got all my sleep, I had time to prepare, and like and then I just I ate earlier in the day, so like I feel more like an adult, and I'm ready to just take on every single person on this panel with good intentions and leave victorious, right? Repeatedly.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, let's just get cracking. Topic 1. In the capital of Canada, Ottawa, I'm told. I don't really care. There is a massive protest demonstration led by truckers. It's called the Fweedom Convoy, and the participants have used their vehicles to block city streets and blare their horns. The protest has been linked to far-right actors. Ottawa's mayor has declared a state of emergency and is ready to deploy police forces. Residents have said they are scared to leave their homes. What should the police response be? Should they give the protesters room to make themselves heard? Or should they crack down on lawlessness? Do you think the response from the police would change if the races of the participants were different? Yep, we're talking about the Fweedom Convoy. You guys have all heard. It's like a meme at this point, I think. But yeah, it's a thing that's happening. Yeah. But I think I missed something. No, I didn't. the Miss Show. Okay. So we'll get started with introductions. We'll go with Wiggle.
Yeah, I'd say like I want to preface that like I'm not Canadian, so like anything I say, I wanna be clear because I hate it when Canadians tell me about what things are going on in the United States. I'm not gonna know what's going on, so whatever I'm saying is from the purview of reading information. I don't live there. I don't know the situation of Canadians in Ottawa or what they think about like the police. But outside of that, I'd say that coming from what I understand of America, I think like I was largely wrong about my ideas about the pandemic and like what divides us in America. At this point in time, I believe that liberals don't actually care about like the mask mandates or vaccines or what have you. It's more about belief and like your institutions being correct and the idea that it's easy. The liberals want something that's easy. They want to go along with it as long as it makes sense. And I believe that conservatives have taken this stance that I didn't believe at first, but now I believe, which is just not that I personally, but I believe that they believe this, is that personally they think this is like an erosion of something. There's an erosion of like a certain virtue of or value that's happening when you impose a mandate. And I think this gets conflated whenever you read these newspapers, is that they're catering to like whatever you think on the left. They want you to see these individuals and think, oh, they're against vaccines and they're against this or what have you. When I think it's more indicative of them being against a removal of choice, like a force, which I don't agree with, but at least I can sit here and understand where they're coming from instead of ignoring that truth. I also find it's really interesting that whenever there's like some sort of like revolt or some sort of like little protest that expands, this is not a little protest. It's pretty big. There's always this idea of splintering it from like a hegemonic force like a government. So in this instance, they come after these people and they say, look, there's swastikas, Confederate flags. It's like all the enemies of the past DLC come out and they take this idea that these white people are racist. They know what they want, and what they want is something like terrible. And I think like this is kind of what they did with Black Lives Matter in the United States, right? Is they took this opposite approach. Is they looked at people that were protesting about something they disliked, and they said, "Oh, these are angry black people that don't even know what they want." And if they don't even really know if it's appeasable or it's something, and they don't know what they want, and that's how you're supposed to view them, as angry and black. And then when it's these white individuals that have these beliefs, all of a sudden it's, oh, they know exactly what they want, and what they want is racist, and what they want is this. But I don't really think that's the case for the vast majority, and that's it.
Thank you so much. Scott, go, and please be slightly more concise than Wiggle. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so this topic has about 10 questions in it that could all be topics for a panel. So it makes it kind of difficult to answer because it's such an open-ended topic, but not just open-ended. You asked several questions that need to be answered. So I guess in terms of the idea of them being tied to far-right actors, or, you know, the conflating of their ideas as racist, I'm not one to to try and reinvent the wheel. I think Pierre Pelevra kind of already said it best when he said, quote, just because Justin Trudeau dressed up in racist costumes so many times he can't remember them all doesn't mean every member of the Liberal Party is a racist. Or when he said, just because he tried to help a corporation avoid prosecution for stealing from some of Africa's poorest people doesn't mean that every member of the Liberal Party is a racist. I think, you know, trying to disparage an entire movement because there's a couple of crazy people, or a couple of people with symbols that you don't like is no different than when conservatives try and say that like every Black Lives Matter protest was like Antifa, or like, you know, terrorists that wanted to burn down buildings just because some of them were doing that. And we got, you know, from the media over and over and over again, we got mostly peaceful protests while standing in front of burning buildings. But, you know, now it's, you know, we saw a swastika in there somewhere and it totally wasn't a federal agent or a Boogaloo boy. It's representative of the entire movement. Now, moving forward, I really don't, what I find really interesting about this, and I think should kind of preface all the other stuff that we'll talk about, is I love that the left loves to talk about working class people until working class people actually voice their opinions. right? Like the left loves to talk about how they care about the poor and they care about working class. And then you have these truckers coming out and trying to stop an authoritarian government that has been violently attacking them for years. And then they say, oh, well, this is ridiculous. It's, the whole country hates it. Well, 77% of Canadians support the Freedom Convoy. So that ought to tell you something, because 23% don't support it, which is also the exact same percentage of Canadians that are young Earth creationists. So if you're against this convoy, just know that you're in the same minority percentage-wise as people that don't believe in evolution. That's how fringe your idea is. And I think we'll get into more stuff, and we'll just leave it at that. If you don't support the Freedom Convoy, you don't give a fuck about the working poor, and you are and you're in the same minority of individuals that support young Earth creationism.
So that's the no and concise. Thank you so much. Okay, now let's go to half baked take.
Well, it's kind of
I'll
your fault with the
I'll
topic.
be real quick. I'm concerned that this argument is getting conflated with these truckers being anti-vax when in fact they're just anti-mandate. I think that will end up being part of the discussion. I do think it's interesting that there's only been like 60 criminal investigations opened post arrest, so it seems like it's a pretty peaceful demonstration. They are being pretty fucking annoying with the honking and shit, but what are you gonna do? That's their right to do so. And then if people are committing crimes, arrest them. But other than that, I don't have a problem with them doing this shit. And I do think it's good that it's going to be up on the ballot coming up here shortly for them to vote on the vaccine mandates.
So much erudite.
Sure, yeah, I'll be super quick. I think mostly this convoy is a really good test of people's level of consistency in their positions. I think if you have like really big issues with it, for certain reasons, you should make sure that you've approached other potential protests with a similar lens. But I'm big on consistency. Overall, I will say criminals are bad. Doing criminal crimes, bad. Never supporting that. And I think it's really important that protest leaders denounce criminal actions, Nazi flags, all those things. I think it's fundamental to keeping the integrity of a protest. I don't know if I necessarily care one way or the other about the protest specifically. However, I think it is within any group's purview to protest. But I think that the line that's being drawn right now with the Canadian protest is that the question is, when is it considered unlawful if not tons of crimes are happening, but like quality of life for all those around it is markedly diminished?
Joe Lewis.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a more dedicated effort and preventative measures, considering that there has been examples of extremism infiltrating these groups and the message, and then just like heavily documented evidence of different acts of violence and criminality. And then on top of that, like even there's like the part within the GoFundMe, because GoFundMe said based on their actions on there, they relinquished the funds or suspended them. I personally don't agree with that, but maybe we can get into like specifics of why I disagree there. Generally, I think as soon as possible, Canada needs to close off Wellington Street, which is right in front of Parliament Hill, and create a no, at the very least, a no parking or standing within the red zone, which may already exist. I'd have to double check on the semantics about how red zones navigate. But generally speaking, I think they have to get the trucks out of Wellington Hill, leave it exclusively for essential travel, and then also creating no stopping and standing in essential businesses. So I would rope in hospitals, schools, homeless shelters, government buildings, federal monuments, and stuff like that. Just so that there's no vandalism at these places. I can't really speak towards like the police role as it relates to race, since I'm not Canadian. And the relationship between police bias in the States is vastly different than what we're dealing with or what Canadians are dealing with. So maybe somebody who's Canadian can maybe speak on that a little bit more.
Okay. Not Canadian, thank God for that. All right, let's move on to Stardust.
So I think, as others have said here, everybody has the right to protest. It's probably one of the more integral parts of participating in, like a country's politics. Obviously, acts of violence should be condemned, and if there is a situation in which emergency vehicles are having trouble getting through, we should alleviate that. But I did want to push back a little bit on what Scott was saying on that this convoy is representing like working class truckers. It's been condemned by trucking industry groups, and the Canadian Trucking Alliance has reported that a large number of protesters had no connection to trucking. And I like, while I'm all for the, again, I'm all for the right to protest. There are other working class groups that are affected by this. You okay, buddy? Um, there are plenty of other working class
You've been
groups that
muted
are
because
affected.
it's your intro.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I think there are other working class groups that are affected by this. So it is important to pay attention to that. There have been medical workers who've been advised to not wear scrubs on the way to work because of the animosity that some of the protesters have towards them. Other than that, I have no problem with people protesting. So I think that go ahead, protest.
Quick, please.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat a lot of what's been said. I think that more important than what is being protested is protecting the right to protest. And when we talk about issues or groups that we may fundamentally disagree with, and we may fundamentally think are wrong or morally bankrupt, we should still protect their right to protest. Because when we do that, we protect the societal norms and we protect the privilege it is and the fundamental right we should have as citizens, either of Canada or of America or really anywhere in the world, to be able to voice our opinions, even if those opinions are something that people find distasteful and offensive. And I think that while I think it's a little silly what they're doing, I support their right to do that. I think what GoFundMe did was terrible, and I think that has a lot of connotations going forward that we need to really be careful of, and it's a giant red flag to me going forward about GoFundMe just suspending their funding and issuing refunds to everyone. That was handled terribly poorly. When it comes to the government and how the government's handling it, I mean, as far as I can tell, and again, I don't live in Canada. As far as I can tell, mostly they've been fine. I mean, they're annoyed, they're mad, they've issued arrests when violence occurred, and I think that's within their purview too. And to the question, would it be different if the races were different? Well, we don't have to ask that question if we think, because there have been many protests where Indigenous people have blocked rail lines and blocked transportation networks and things in order to protest how they've been treated, and they were handled fairly well by the government up there. I don't think anything was too heavy-handed. So all in all, I think this acting as if it's the end of the world that this group is protesting, and that but groups outside of the country have funded it. I mean, the politicians there really want to cut off funding from outside of their country. I don't think they want that. I think a lot of them get money from out international sources. So that's what I think.
Okay. Doobie.
So the questions you asked were, what should the police response be? I think if the protests are illegal, they should be broken up. If people are delivering fuel to them or helping them out with food and whatever, like they've had reports of, those people should probably be fined or arrested. If they, the next question was, should they give the protesters room to make themselves heard, or should they crack down on the lawlessness? I think they've been heard, right? I think everybody knows, what the fuck they're there for. Unfortunately, to the people in Ottawa, they can definitely hear these fucking truckers, right? All the fucking time, right? Almost 90% of Ottawa wants them gone. The vast majority of Canadians support more restrictions for the unvaccinated, not less. So they've been heard. People disagree with them. Break up the protests, impound the trucks, and send them home.
Into the panel.
So,
All right.
just
Oh my
just real
God.
quick,
So,
I
go
just
ahead.
real quick to Doobie's point that they're being disruptive to the people in Ottawa. Isn't that the point of protest? To be
Yeah.
disruptive? That's
Sure.
how it's effective, is when you disrupt things. And so, to a point,
Sure, but
we
so
should
you have a right to
allow
protest. Okay, you have a right to protest and to be loud and annoying, but given that this is an illegal protest and what they're actually doing is blockading a lot of streets that people need to go down to get to work and live their lives, this is not a legal protest. Right? This is not
Could-
within their right to
couldn't-
protest.
So
And you guys
couple
love democracy so much. The vast majority of people in that city want them gone. The disruption to their lives is not worth these people's right to scream about how angry they are that they need to get vaccinated. And the vast majority of the country supports more
No,
restrictions
they
on
don't.
these
That's a
people.
lie.
No, you can
That is
treat
not
this.
a lie.
You
do-
can treat
I-
this like you
Argus
do with
Reed
any
poll-
loud
Argus
noise
Argus
violation.
Street poll
They could
just
I
hold,
I
one,
do
one
want
second,
to
Scott.
say-
Scott.
4% of
There-
Canadians want to get rid of all mandates.
Okay,
Wait, hold on.
so
This-
the convoy,
Scott.
yeah. So the Canadian Trucking Alliance said that there is a large portion of these protesters that are not associated with trucking at all.
Yeah,
So,
and,
I mean,
and Jeff
and-
Bezos
and-
went on Facebook and said that the Amazon workers.
I wasn't finished. I wasn't finished. Look, I'm just saying that I support their right to protest, right? But if it does interfere with like emergency vehicles coming through, or if there are frontline workers that are being harassed, then there is an issue
That's not
there.
true. The Freedom Convoy has been training people and has individuals going through to make sure that all emergency vehicles are getting through.
Okay, that's good then. Yeah, but there have been several. I think it was a couple of emergency vehicles were attacked, and then there were like advisories given out to like medical workers to like not wear scrubs outside because of they'll get harassed or whatever. So
I mean, a lot
And
of
the big problem,
Oh.
is the noise. The big problem is the noise and the disruption to people's lives on a day-to-day basis. These protests could continue, and then they could enforce a noise restriction the same way that they treat like people's like sound systems in their car or having a party at night and being too loud. It's as simple as doing something like that. Hey, if you guys want to stay in this spot and continue to be here and be a presence here, that's fine. But you can't make fucking massive amounts of noise disrupting the day-to-day lives of people out of
Wait, but it isn't. Hasn't
So-
the protest been declared illegal?
It's
not
bordering
from
on
my
legal. Trudeau
understanding.
has said
No.
it is
Nothing-
moving in the direction of being illegal. He has not declared it objectively illegal. And
They've made the
it's-
honking illegal.
Well,
Well,
they're
the-
injunctioning it because, to be clear about the honking, just so people know, at the ground level, it's 100 decibels pretty much constantly, and in people's homes that live around it, it's about 95 decibels. You can get ear damage within 15 minutes of those decibels. So it's not just like annoying noise; it's like actually like damaging. If you have things like any sort of like ear injury, so like if you have a cochlear injury, you'd like if I lived there, I would literally have to evacuate because it would be like I have an inner ear injury. I couldn't fucking be there. So it's like it's a little bit more than just like annoying honking. And that's the part where we're saying this is starting to border on like illegal because of that.
What about
and
the
like
state?
harassing people
This
trying to
is-
go to work.
But
What about the people who've committed suicide from these fucking lockdowns? What about the authoritarian state? This is violence committed upon the people of
God,
Canada.
they're not
They're
protesting
fucking
the
fighting back.
lockdowns. They're not
So
protesting the
January
lockdowns, Scott.
31st,
Lockdowns and mandates.
They're
Ottawa
protesting the
paramedics
mandate.
announced that
protesting the
protesters
mandate.
threw rocks at an
What are you
ambulance.
talking about?
I mean, even if the sound is not, and it sounds like the sound is a very big issue. Even if we take the sound out of it, right? There have been instances that these paramedics were attacked. They had rocks thrown at them. They were called racial slurs.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have massive protests. You know,
Yeah,
like,
like,
shit
I
like
think
that,
a
shit
bun
like that
comes
can't-
in.
you can't
from
point to shit like
BLM
that.
protests,
It's too big of a
right?
protest.
it's
way
part
too
of what
large
happens
a
in massive protests.
Yeah, but we should speak out and say like that's
No, we
that's
should
an
be speaking
issue,
out
and
against
leaders
the
leaders
state.
of that
Yeah.
protest need
People
to
are.
say that we
This is-
denounce
this
this,
is-
right? It's
but
important
this
that
is
the leaders of
laughable.
the
This
movement
is laughable.
denounce the Nazi flag. Like that was
Well,
important
they
for them
need
to do.
to.
and they
come-
didn't.
These
come
are
on- come on
these
here,
are
like,
essential
because it's
workers.
important that-
Paramedics,
because
really?
they're used- the
Paramedics?
media
You
is
want to
trying to
justify?
use-
You
what
want to
kind of
justify
perverse-
the
use
usage
its
of
power
violence on
hate them,
paramedics?
and then wants nothing but fucking
Look-
soundbite clips, and they
look-
know the media is their enemy, so they're telling them to go fuck themselves
Look-
because the truckers have enough power, and the
Let's
farmers
just
that are
fuck
breaking
over
through have
all the
enough power.
working class medical workers then.
What,
Just fuck
what kind
them.
of perverse democracy is that? Of like, we need to step up and we need to protest the protesters. That's
the
democracy.
medical workers.
No,
Like,
you just
we need-
denounce it. Like all
like-
you need to do is police your own. It's
All you need to do
fundamental
is police
just
your own.
listen
It's
to me.
a
Just
pro-
please just let
Well,
me talk.
they are.
Yeah,
Please just let
erudite,
me
please.
talk.
Erudite, please.
Okay, it is fundamental that protesters do their best to disown those that they don't agree with because it makes their movement more meaningful and it makes it have better charge. If they actually want to like change all these mandates, which I'm not even necessarily agreeing with them, what they need to do, it's the same critiques I've had of movements on either side. Denounce the bad actors that don't represent your group. If there's one group that I'm pretty sure it was only one Nazi flag, but there's been quite a few Confederate flags, just denounce it. Just be like, those fuckers aren't with us. Just go on Facebook. And I've been trolling through their Facebook and their Twitter for hours and their TikTok to try to see if they would ever call out these individuals to say, hey, just by the way, we don't stand by the assaults. And that hasn't really happened.
And it's the same thing. It's the same. We can look at the BLM protests too. Like when there's rioting, I think we would be consistent and say that they should denounce that type of rioting, right? But if there's violence being committed, right? If there are hate speech being broadcasted, if there are hate symbols flying around.
Use silly terms.
Okay, all right. So if there are hate symbols flying around, then they should denounce that.
This is laughable though. This is just a liberal excuse of like, all right, if you did this thing, and I imagine if they did, you guys wouldn't care. You'd go on to the next thing. Like, what does being a Nazi have to do with like protesting against like a mandate? Like you guys will find anything to stick on and be like, you should have done this or legitimize your protest.
Wig, come on. I said at the very beginning of my statement that I support the right to protest.
But you added a but. And that but is where lies every liberal.
Of course, there's always allowed to be caveats to any position. That's how you introduce nuance into the conversation.
Nuance is the thing.
You guys want to go and get a
package deal politics that if we accept one thing, we have to swallow it whole, every single bit of it. We can say and be internally consistent and be correct that it's okay to protest. It's good to protest and have your voice heard. But if you commit violence, that the leaders of that protest, just as a good strategy, just as good optics, taking morality out of it, just as good optics. If you denounce violence, that's an easy win. That's an easy win for you. And
why would you denounce You're keeping public opinion on your side.
You guys want a menu
for like serve other work. Like
there's a menu and you could choose the protest you want.
Violence is wrong is an easy win. Violence is wrong is an easy win.
So self-defense is immoral?
How is it defensive if you're throwing rocks and calling paramedics racial slurs?
Because you've been.
Again, that's not defensive. You're actually preventing people from helping people who need that.
This is the scapegoat, is taking that and then saying that's the whole movement until you denounce it.
No, what I'm talking about is the violence from the state against the Canadian fucking people. You guys talk about GoFundMe, but why did GoFundMe do what they did? Why did they do it? Because the police
racism before, but good stuff.
Okay, cool. Just throw racism in. Racism and everything magically.
Well, I brought up the paramedics. You're saying it's defensive violence. How is calling somebody slurs and throwing rocks?
You know what? I watched more than one video of BLM protesters pull out white people from their vehicles and beat the shit out of them and say white things. Therefore, all of BLM is racist, and we don't have to talk about it. BLM's racist.
Wrong.
And why are you being so binary about this? Why are you being so black and white about it?
This is not.
All I'm asking.
I'm using her own logic in the same way and saying
I know you are, but.
Scott, I am not disagreeing with you. I would condemn that too, and that's why people should come out and condemn those things, right? So if somebody is throwing rocks at paramedics and calling them slurs, we should condemn that.
Why are you?
I don't understand.
What do you mean?
Scott, I know you're doing it.
Now that I've backed you into a corner, now you want to say it's an individual.
Okay. We're moving forward. We gotta move things along. All right, Happy takes then Joe Lewis.
What corner?
Scott, I know you're coming at this in the same the same view of like the tree of liberty needs to be watered with the blood of tyrants type shit. But
patriots and tyrants,
but that's not what this is. These people aren't facing, the government is not enacting violence upon them, so they're
starving people.
What am I lying about, Scott?
No,
that's what I'd like.
The mayor of Ottawa is intentionally making sure that homeless people die, so that people that are there for the Freedom Convoy can't get into hotels and locking down hotels, and doesn't give a fuck that homeless people in Ottawa actually depend upon those hotels so that they can stay warm. or the fact that these mandates are getting people to not have
we're
jobs.
we're not seeing the homeless
What?
people
You can't
committing
put food on
violence.
your fucking
We're
table.
not
Homeless people
the
almost
homeless
never
people
use
aren't
hotels, just to
they're
be
not
clear. Like,
committing
but that's
violence.
not that's why
But I'll
shelters and
pet
stuff
Doobie.
exist.
I'm
The
curious what
shelters
Doobie
were
has to
shut down
say.
for COVID.
Scott,
Multiple
what,
times.
What are you
what,
saying,
what did I
Doobie?
lie about? What did I
That's
lie
fine.
about, Scott? What did I lie about? I'd like to know.
You started off your argumentation as a means of attacking the movement as a whole by trying to take
No,
individual
I
things.
actually
Called you out on that,
specifically
and then
said
you
at
tried
the
to pivot.
beginning of my statement that I support the right for people to protest.
And then you
However,
added
when
a caveat and then attacked the movement
yes,
by the actions
no,
of a few
not
individuals
the
and then painted
movement.
the
When
entire
you
movement that way.
have
I'm not one of your low
emergency
IQ individuals
workers,
on a fucking
I'm not
panel.
one of okay,
Step
you
up.
can't fucking talk. You can't no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to let you bulldoze me. When you prevent emergency workers from providing essential services, yeah, you should condemn that. Just like if the same thing happened at BLM, I would condemn that too. So,
not-
I mean,
Yeah, let's go
Do you
to
not think there should be any
Joe
limits?
Lewis, Joe Lewis, Doobie, and then Wick. All right. Yeah.
I don't really understand the utility if you are a protester to waste time condemning violence within the protest itself. It seems like you should probably spend that time like pushing whatever your propaganda is. And it seems like their demands are really clear. Get rid of vaccine mandates, do away with vaccine passports, and rehire all individuals who were fired due to vaccine compliance. So like if I'm a protester for the Freedom Convoy, I don't see why it's politically advantageous to just condemn violence when that should just be the floor. I don't know why. It just seems like you're just appeasing the liberals when you just say like, oh, like the violence bad. Like no shit, Sherlock, water's wet.
Appeasing the liberals is what keeps like the
status quo.
Status quo.
not the status quo, but the PR and the optics on your side. It's what keeps the positive outlook on your movement going.
Positive outlook at the status
But
quo.
what is
yeah.
it? What does that
If
matter?
it's gonna be
What-
voted on, you
what-
want people to vote in your favor. I don't know how this is like so fucking difficult. If you
No,
want
it's
people
fucking. It's
to
going
vote
to a
for the
vote.
end of
Whoa,
mandates,
wait.
you're gonna want to
Wait a minute.
convince people to end the mandates.
I've sat through this for a while now. So like, okay, why haven't the protesters tried to collectively bargain with the unions to try to figure out a process if you're actually looking to rehire individuals who were fired due to vaccine compliance? That's something you have to collaborate with truckers unions, businesses, and stuff like that. So why aren't they spending their political energy doing that? If you're looking to do away vaccine passports and mandates, why hasn't there been any sort of communication with Trudeau and Parliament to try to come to some situation where they have a seat at the table and bargain so that they can leave? That these are things that seem more politically advantageous than trying to just condemn violence. Now I understand that like there is a liberal perspective of like making sure that the things that we see on the internet and the things that we see in mass media are nice and peaceful and we can kumbaya and like suck each other's dick. But like I think that if I'm in the Freedom Convoy, I'd rather like use my time with the media and use my time talking to the public to just spread the propaganda of getting rid of vaccine mandates, do away with vaccine passports, and rehire individuals, and just make that my messaging. And if you make that messaging clear, then you don't have to condemn violence because they already have the organization to do so. So I don't know.
Joe Lewis, just real quick, they did try and do that, and then Justin Trudeau's like running and hiding and won't talk to them.
Yeah, and the unions distance themselves, I think, out of political reasons. But
Yeah,
Let's
the unions
go.
in the industry is
Let's
not
go to
supporting them.
Doobie and Wick, and then Wickle.
Yeah, so I think we can all agree that, given that there are thousands of people there, if a handful of them attack some first aid workers or yelled racial slurs, right, it doesn't really like paint the whole movement as like racist, right? If one of them had a Nazi flag, it doesn't mean that it doesn't really affect the message that they're putting out. So I think I agree with Scott with that. Not fully agree, but we can kind of set that aside. It's been addressed. They obviously don't support that stuff, or the leaders don't support it. The majority of the people there aren't Nazis or racists or whatever. So I think we can kind of set that aside for now. But what I'm wondering is like, do you guys think that like it's reasonable to expect that the government will comply with their demands, given that they're blockading this area, right? They're slowing down traffic in this city. They're making life hell for people living there. The people want them gone. And they vowed to stay there, and they have millions of dollars to do it now, for as long as it takes for all the restrictions to be lifted, right? So I don't think that's a reasonable demand, first off, and I don't think it's reasonable to expect the government to do that, right? So at some point, right, I think you need to accept that they've been heard, and now they need to go home, right? So whether we've crossed, I think they've crossed that point already. But I'm not Canadian, so I don't really give a fuck what happens in Canada. But if this were happening in the United States, we're far past the point where these people need to be broken up, right? The trucks need to be impounded and they need to be sent home. It's simple.
Yeah,
right? So like,
I
what
can
Scott, I'm
summarize your
wondering,
point for you,
Scott,
Doobie, real quick.
Scott, I'm
Obey.
wondering, yeah, obey.
Shut
So
up and
Scott,
obey the state.
yes. So Scott, I'm wondering, how long would you let them sit there? Like, how long do you think it's reasonable for them to be, sitting there with their fucking
I'll
horns?
tell you, I'll answer it
their
this way.
flag?
I'm excited and hoping that the rumors are true that they're going to block off the Nova Scotia port and shut down the economy to the fucking country until the government obeys. I hope Canada's GDP fucking plummets until the state learns their fucking lesson.
Okay, so at that point, when if they do that, and the government does break up the protests, does start arresting people,
I think they should. I think they should defend themselves violently.
Does anybody?
Sure. That's what they should do.
Sure.
They should.
Yeah,
they should have their firearms, and the police
they
attempt
can
to
go into
break
their
them up.
trucks, get their
They should shoot
firearms,
back.
and fight the police, of course. So does
Absolutely.
anybody else here agree with that position?
Not at all.
I think it's laughable to think from the perspective of, I want to put a time limit on this. This is how you should maintain. This is the best PR move. It's like a bunch of Elizabeth Warren people. Like what the fuck? Like, these are angry people that are protesting, and then we're all sitting in our homes going like, well, actually, like, the best way for them to get what they want in the electoral process is if they condemn this. They do this. They're angry people. They're angry. Like, if you've ever worked in customer service, you understand how irrational angry people can be. Like, they have a clear idea in mind of what they want.
So what? We're just gonna fuck over people who need like emergency services because of that. That's just gonna be
The
okay.
fuck
No,
you
this is
talking
a
about,
problem.
Charlotte?
This is
We
a problem.
already-
This protest should be able
That's
to
what
go
they're
as
doing.
long as they fucking want, as long as they're doing it in a peaceful and reasonable manner. The problem is that for some goddamn reason, Scott wants to go to the far end of like, let's fucking commit offensive violence on the state because of
The
these
state started it.
mandates.
It's self-defense.
And then on the other side, it's like, well, yeah, we're not going to shut these protests down because they have a right to protest. I don't give a fuck if they're out there for the next 30 years. As long as they're doing it in a reasonable and peaceful manner, they have the right to do so.
Yeah, I agree with
Why
that. Yeah.
Why don't the people in Ottawa have the right to live their lives without this disruption?
And
That's what I just said. I said, as long as you're doing it in a reasonable way, which would infer that you're doing it, you're
Which is
not
not what they're doing right
disrupting. No, I know, but you could adjust it, and you could like people were saying, open up the lanes right in front of Parliament so they can push stuff through. Obviously, if there's emergency vehicles, if emergency vehicles aren't moving, they should be impounded and the owners arrested. There's a lot of things that you could do without going to the extreme of, okay, shut this fucking protest down. That's all I'm saying.
At what point do you just
we're acting like there's only two options here: let them protest forever and commit some sort of violent revolution, or we have to shut it down immediately, and we cannot allow them to go on in any way, shape, or form.
Well, it's three,
And
but
that's
okay.
not true at all. This is just so a weird kind of take here. And I do want to push back a lot against what Joe Lewis said. Like, you can do both. You can condemn violence while using that to propagandize, and propaganda is fucking important. And propaganda it works. And if you do it right and correctly, you will have a more successful movement. You could do it poorly and still have some success. You can do it well and still not have a lot of success. But it is a necessary but not sufficient part to any sort of movement that they are able to get the populace on their side. Because in a democracy, that's how policy works. That's how laws get written, is we vote on them. And if you can get a plurality of votes, then you want to do that, because that is what gets things done in America. And I assume Canada. I am not familiar with their parliamentary system. And to act as if it's okay for a small minority of people, even if they feel that they're being unheard, to commit violence and like shoot at cops and shit like that. That's
yes.
We do not want that. The government has the government
authority.
has the right and the authority and the right and the responsibility to protect its citizens. And if a small group of citizens is causing real harm to the larger portion of the populace, the government needs
You sound
to
like
step
you
in.
sound like MSNBC right now, bro. Like,
Do I get to respond to that, or
Joe
do you
Lewis,
want to just move on?
No, Joe Lewis can respond, and then we'll go to DB, who's desperately has his hands up. All hands.
Is that what he has? I'm
Yes,
not sure what's going on there.
I don't think protesters should appease liberal propaganda because liberals get upset that things get a little bit shaky and violent. I think that if you are a protester, you should stick to the message and perpetuate your propaganda. And if you do that well enough, then one variation of the non-binary that we're trying to talk about is that maybe it's possible that the police can discern the difference between people who are spreading a message that is very clear and those who are not spreading that message and spreading violence. I think you don't have to do that. I don't think you have to say, oh, violence bad, but
Joe, would you agree that most movements, when looked upon historically, we tend to look at the ones that were peaceful in a more positive light because they tend to, on average, lead to more change?
liberals in the status quo like peaceful protests
Yeah,
because they like to ignore the actual violence that exists in those movements.
Thank you.
The civil rights,
at,
the
like,
civil rights movement was violent.
100%.
Wait,
The
the
civil
civil
rights
rights
movement-
Hold
real
on,
quick.
hold on. Am
The
I
civil rights
still talking?
movement.
Am I still talking? Did I cut out for a second? Hang on.
It seemed like
You can skip me for now. I'm gonna fix my mic. 'cause I think you guys can hear me.
You're good. You're good, Joe. Turns out I can still hear you.
Oh, perfect, great. I thought my mic was fucked up because people were
Still
talking
looking
over me.
like the hidden Super Smash Brothers challenger.
Again, protests and movements against the state and institutions are violent. And just because liberals in the status quo can paint it in such a way because of history and time that they were not, doesn't mean that the reality didn't exist, right? These things are violent. And you're going to have to get used to that. I'm sorry.
There is
You got a
violence.
problem?
within-
Cool.
I'm okay
Like, I
with
don't tell you.
violence. Believe
In
me,
and
I'm
of
okay with
itself,
violence.
You get it's multifaceted, dude. There's multiple it's not just like there's a peaceful movement that succeeds. There's always another side. There's always the more violent movement that scares the safe people, like a lot of the people on this panel, and then you have this you have this other group that shares the same sentiment as the more violent group that brings about a more peaceful change. And those are the people that get listened to and they get all the credit for all the change that happens. And that's just what's always happened. It's never, you think that people
because the
like,
violent people actually set back the
no, they
No,
don't.
yes, they do.
No,
There
get
is-
you talking
no,
about.
I will give
Yeah,
you
they
real
do.
quick.
Real
For
quick.
example,
In talking
for
about
example,
it.
They do.
Two
Give us
seconds.
historical examples
Two
of what you're
seconds.
talking about, Wiggle. Give
2
us historical.
seconds.
I will
2
give you a
seconds.
historical
Promise. Wait,
example of
2 seconds.
Of
And you
Uh,
2 seconds.
Oh my
I
God.
promise.
This
2
is
seconds.
just
Okay,
Real quick,
no,
real quick.
no, not 2
MLK.
seconds. Oh,
it's ahistoric.
MLK.
It's ahistoric.
MLK,
yeah.
right?
Oh my God.
MLK gets all the fucking credit, and nobody wants to talk about Malcolm X and
2
Stokely
seconds.
Carmichael.
Great. Okay, so Wiggle, you were challenged by
My name
Erudite.
is Kwame Ture.
And then I want to, Wiggle, and then Doobie's been waiting.
Yeah, I would say, like, do you believe that during the civil rights movement that you would have so much support for black individuals at that point in time just because they were peaceful? If there was no violence at all, do you believe that in America we would have had the change that we got today without some level of violence?
Absolutely. I think
So-
the major thing that MLK
And that's
talked about all
laughable,
the time.
but continue.
Okay, try not to interrupt me if you can.
It's
The
hard.
reason why MLK was really successful was he was abjectly against what made his protest so much more potent and powerful was despite the police violence, despite everyone being fucking horrific to them, they remained peaceful and they took it, and it highlighted the barbaric nature of what was going on, and it actually allowed a whole bunch of people to be like, holy shit, I can't be on the side of the they're literally standing there and like singing and putting like flowers on things, and the police are taking them down and assaulting, and it absolutely highlighted a very, very deep-rooted problem within our society.
We can see how the
Or
liberal
maybe
propaganda
when-
won.
Yes,
But
yes, 100%.
or-
How would you get that without the
Nah,
violence?
that's
No,
not
there is
fucking
data
true.
to
The liberal
suggest-
propaganda didn't win because the civil rights movement actually progressed and civil rights were attained.
No,
So I
that
don't
was
know
the
what
whole
you're
point. Yeah,
Tell that to
that was
Fred
the whole
Hampton.
point
He
of
was
the
murdered
There
in
is
his
data
apartment.
to suggest that the riots and the violence actually set back the civil rights movement and actually had an influence. It wasn't the sole causal factor, but it was a factor that led to more redlining. It led to poverty in these, and it hurt these minority communities. And the peaceful, as Erudite so aptly put, the peaceful movement was able to succeed. Where again, this isn't like I'm pulling shit
Because
out
there
of
was
my
violence.
ass.
The
This is
peaceful movement
historical
succeeded.
fact. It's not
See,
whitewash.
here's the
People
problem.
wanted
Here's the
peace.
problem.
It was in
The
Okay,
civil
contract.
right- when we equate this with
Zealotry?
civil right, the problem is when we equate this with civil rights, you could justify violence. I can justify violence because violence was being
How is this
committed
any
up-
different?
So
The
Because-
government
This
is
is
using
funny.
violence against its
Whatever,
people.
Ursula,
How
whatever.
that
There
is
are
mandates
people.
different
So
than the Jim Crow South. Come
different.
on, Scott. Are you fucking around, dude? Are you
Okay.
trolling?
Give it.
Are you
Give it
memeing?
you know what? Give it 2 more years, and there'll be vaccinated and unvaccinated water fountains.
Oh boy!
Well, then talk to me
Wow.
in 2
Okay.
fucking years.
Let's go. Let's go to
They're
let's go to
not now,
Doobie.
and that's not
Let's
what they're
go to
protesting
Doobie.
now.
Doobie, you've been waiting.
Yes, sir. So Wick tried to do the violence on both sides thing. He said, "Oh, well, we're talking about one extreme versus the other," but you didn't give us anything in the middle, Wick. So I'm wondering, what's your solution? So these people are saying they're not going to leave until all the vaccine restrictions, all the mandates, any restriction put forward is removed. Right? The government is saying they're not going to do that. The majority of Canadians support more restrictions for these people. I think the majority of restrictions actually do support mandates. Right? So given that these are the battle lines here, what do you suggest? Right?
Well, I
The
think
government
half-baked-
do
yeah,
to
sure.
deal with this.
Half-baked takes said it earlier. As long as they're doing it in a peaceful manner, as long as they're not being overtly disruptive, and there are lines here that we can draw. We can talk about the noise issue, and that's not up for me to decide. That's up to the people of Ottawa and the people of Canada to decide where those limits are. But yeah, if they want to just sit there and have their signs and do their protest, that's perfectly fine. That's
Wait,
allowed. That's good.
but
They should
almost
sit for it.
90% of the people of Ottawa want them
It doesn't
gone.
like even if you're a minority of one person, you still should have the right to protest. You should
These
have the right
people-
to be heard.
Okay.
I
And-
literally don't
and
care
they
about
can go- they
minority
can-
opinion.
They've
I don't-
okay, that's weird. So
How's
they've
that weird?
protested. They've protested.
Minority rights.
Right? They've been heard. The majority of the country disagrees with them. The majority of the city that wants them gone. So you're saying that they should be allowed to just squat there
please don't lie.
forever if they want to.
if we're
I'm
talking
not
about
lying.
space, why not?
Scott, I double checked. If you can find me something else, something that says the majority of Canadians don't support more restrictions, majority of Canadians don't support mandates in some way, then I'm happy to read it. Right? But I just looked it up 3 times, right? And I can't find anything that supports what you're saying.
Wiggle, I also want to address a kind of an elephant that's awkwardly sitting in the room. So we keep talking about like liberals being limp-wristed and all these things, but I asked you a
Yeah.
really direct question and you answered with a question.
What?
I prefer if you hold. I asked you for historical evidence and you said basically civil rights question mark rather than just like staking out historical like talk me through because I'm genuinely open to saying maybe there's some specific event you're thinking of within civil rights that I'm unaware of, but you just kind of said all of civil
the-
rights, which isn't it isn't an answer.
No, I was talking about the civil rights movement with like black individuals in the United States. But like it's
What
for me, it's a
specifically
pretty
happened?
for-
What specifically happened where you're saying my question was basically
There you go,
can
Dewey,
you
it's in the
achieve
chat.
the same civil rights without violence?
no.
Give me a
like,
This is a
historical
disrespectful
example
question.
of not doing that.
yeah, so like this what you're describing is a very, very simple idea. There's like an idea of door in the face, foot in the door. And at the same time, there's always going to be within a movement people that take the door in the face approach where they're going to be like problematic. They're going to
You
be
know
violent
You know
people.
the data on door and face versus foot and door?
No, you can tell
Okay,
me
well,
the data if you want.
Door and face is
Yeah,
not
but you can.
broadly highly effective. Generally,
Yes,
it's recommended
but
for most
doesn't it
advertising
make
firms that use
doesn't it
foot
make
door
foot in the
tactics.
door more effective? That's the point. Is I'm saying that both of these things are
Yes,
tied
the-
together, whereas
know
you
that
guys try to
door in the-
remove one from the other.
But you know that foot in the door is the peaceful version, correct?
Yes, and I'm
Okay,
saying
so
that
you
both
just said
of
it's more
these
effective.
I said that both of these need to exist simultaneously, whereas you
There's
believe that
no
they
evidence
cannot.
to support that. There's
Wait,
literally
Erudite.
zero evidence to support that.
Erudite.
In fact, there's
What
plenty
do
of
you mean
evidence.
there's no evidence to support
There's
that?
plenty
When
of
was the last
evidence
time you had a
to
face?
support. Can I
Name the
finish? There's
last
plenty of
peaceful
actual
movement.
data
What?
and evidence
Changing
to
the
support
colors of like
that
Starbucks coffee
that
cup?
the
When was the
violence
last peaceful
actually
movement?
holds back and slows down the progress of peaceful movements. You're getting it
Yeah.
twisted.
In
You're
What makes
actually
the
in
saying the
most
exact
what makes
situations,
The
the
right? That's
average
opposite?
of what is
person,
actually
Wait.
true.
That's
do
a
you think
certain
the average person, if the average
Reality
person
exists.
Stardust.
is
Wait, help
having
me.
trouble,
Stardust and then
is having
Joe.
yeah, if the average person is having trouble where they are like Natsu Erudite said, where the volume level is so high that there are members in their family who are suffering from this, who are in pain, and the average person is also having trouble like getting to work. That we've seen like the animosity towards medical workers that are already again short-staffed and overworked. Do you think that that is going to influence anybody to be on that protesting group side?
Wick. I think he's
I
gone.
guess it's a no.
Oh no. Was that to you?
That wasn't to me.
So
I don't think.
that was the
Oh.
wig, yeah.
It was
Oh
the
wait,
wig.
a wiggle.
Oh, me. Sorry, I thought you were talking to Wick. So this whole time, like, I was.
So-
All right, I'm sorry. Could you rephrase that? I just thought you were talking
Yeah.
to Wick, so I didn't listen.
Yeah, call him wiggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about
Okay,
that.
yeah.
It's Wig L, so I did a Wig W. It's just a joke.
If the majority of people in the city are being negatively affected in a very very intense way, right? Like the volume level is hurting people with ear injuries or older people, that we've seen the animosity towards the medical workers who are already short-staffed and overworked. People are having tons of trouble getting around the city or even trying to get to work. Do you think that they are going to be more inclined to be on those protesters' sides because of that?
No, the people within that city, no. I don't believe that's the case.
Do you
I
believe-
think
Sorry.
that this is successful. Like this is what those people set out to do. They wanted to be this disruptive, and that's the goal. That's the goal. They went there to be disruptive. I do believe that like there should be some level of temperance. I tend to take the half-baked takes approach versus like maybe the way Wick's positioning it, where like I do believe that like it's the point of the government. It's the state that should step up and create an avenue for these people to protest while also stopping these people from creating a higher level of harm. I just do not like the rhetoric about like that there should be no harm and there should be an elimination of harm, and like and then the idea
I'm
of
gonna
like
share in the
poking
chat.
at
I'm gonna share in
specific
Twitch
holes
chat.
within
I'm gonna
like
share actual studies
Wait.
from actual scientists that show causal relation to there. This is actual data. You can look it up at your own time. I don't expect anyone to do this now, but this is actual data. This is actual historical evidence we have.
Homework?
And it's not just some Twitter.
is it
guy
actually
or
going to
Twitch
happen,
dude
or are you going to
that's
just
making shit
actually
up.
keep
So I'm
talking?
going to put this both in the private chat here, and I'm going to put it in the Twitch chat here.
Out.
And viewers can look at it, and they can make. Do they want to listen to the random dude on Twitch, or do they want to listen to the social scientist,
Authority,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a-
historical,
wait, that's a certainty.
thing? Which do you
That's a
want?
certainty.
Which do you want?
Realize that
Authority,
you were
yeah, brother.
anti-establish,
Yes.
anti intellectual, whatever, Joe. That had no idea that was like your stance.
Joe Lewis.
Like fuck
Wick,
Joe-
anybody who does any studies on anything.
Joe
Wait,
Yeah.
is
Lewis
there a
do
line?
Joe Lewis do be in half.
Violence is an inevitable outcome of protest. The
Sure.
only way that you can, is there something you want to say,
Sorry.
or can I keep going?
My
No,
bad.
you want to hit something to say, so go for it. I want to make sure you get it all out, and then I can go.
No, you can go. I'm sorry.
Fantastic. So we should try our best to alleviate the circumstances that could lead to outcomes that we deem undesirable. So Wick, I'm going to ask you directly, what is currently an undesirable outcome in the protests in Canada? And how do you think the Canadian government should alleviate those circumstances? So please, for me, identify the outcome, identify the circumstance, and what you could do, what you think the Canadian government could do to alleviate that.
Well, I think Erudite hit on it. They are looking at changing the laws for the noise levels in
What
the
is the
city.
outcome first, please?
Okay, outcome first is we want to reduce harm as much as possible to the people
That's not
living in
that's not
Ottawa.
that's not the outcome.
How is that
The-
not the outcome?
What is the current outcome that is happening? I'll walk you through it.
Okay,
What is
what
the
is going
current
on right now?
What is the current outcome that's
What is the
happening in the
current
protests?
condition is that, as I understand it, and again, I don't live there, so I can only go with what I read, as I understand it, is that they are being disruptive to transportation networks within the city, and they're being there's a large amount of noise. As Stardust brought up, that there was some slurs and stones and blocking of emergency vehicles. All these things are not good. All these things need to change.
Great. So they're you said they're being disruptive towards transportation networks. So let's focus on that primarily.
Okay.
That is the outcome. What is the circumstance that is leading to that outcome?
When you say circumstance leading to that outcome, it means that they are using trucks and physically blocking access to important highways and thoroughfares and things like that.
So they're using trucks to block different passageways.
And
How would you
people, things like that.
Okay, they're using trucks to block things. What could be an alleviation tool for that circumstance?
You mentioned it in your opening statement, creating
I want to know what
no
you think, not what I think.
That's a good idea. But I like that idea. That's a good idea. Why?
What's the idea? I didn't hear anything positive. Just said I had a good idea. I don't know what the fuck that means. Just
Well,
just
you
say what you're gonna
interrupted
say.
me as I
Don't
was
invoke me.
talking. You interrupted me,
Absolutely, I
and then
did. I
you
absolutely did.
actually
So
said,
keep
"Well,
going.
I didn't hear
Okay.
anything." Well, yes,
Please.
if you listened, you might.
Please.
So
Oh my
if
God.
you create like a no parking zone or a no loitering zone in front of the Capitol building, Parliament there, I believe you mentioned. If I got it wrong, please correct me. And so that will allow access. Also, allowing access for emergency vehicles and making sure that there's a police presence to enforce that access, I think is very important.
Boring as fuck, right? So one of the things that we have to understand is that all outcomes are possible. If all outcomes are possible, then we have to look at the circumstances that can lead to outcomes that we deem undesirable. From there, we can try to alleviate those circumstances. And that's basically the core of like even things I'm going to argue if we ever get to that point. One of the problems I think is happening time and time again is that we're so like, oh, the outcome is bad, violence is bad. All right, cool. What's the circumstance that led to the violence? And then what can we do to alleviate that circumstance? But by and large, saying just be peaceful and the rhetoric of just being peaceful is not a circumstance alleviator. It's just a slogan that has no teeth to it. So something that you could say is a way to promote peaceful behavior within the thing that you're saying is maybe create some type of blockade, to create some type of no parking zone. Therefore, trucks aren't using their tools to block other individuals, and therefore you alleviate the outcome that is being disrupted towards transportation network. We can do this for every single outcome that exists for that protest, but apparently you gave us some homework, so it might take a while.
Do you not think that there's any value to high level rhetoric? That there's no value to talking things at a conceptual level? Do you not think that speaking on a high level of peaceful protests and using that and pointing that as our goal and our norm, that we can use that strategy to then inform our tactical decisions on the ground? Because when we have the goal of we want to do this peacefully, it informs the minutia and the day-to-day the little things. How do we get this accomplished? If we use that as our mission statement, as a better word perhaps than a strategy, our mission statement, it informs how we act, it informs how we do things. I don't know why this is a hard concept to understand. You said a lot of things that sounded that it's a lot of word salad you used, a lot of things that sounded high-minded but actually said nothing at all.
But it's oh, never mind. You wanted to speak, I'll go after you.
Sure. I just kind of wanted to ask Joe, based on like what you outlined of like, if all outcomes are possible, we have to figure out the outcomes that we want, and blah 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 blah, and we have a bunch of actionable behaviors that we could engage in. Couldn't one of those actionable behaviors that we engage in be disavowing violence?
Disavowing violence does
Yeah.
not prevent the outcome of violence.
Yeah. But I'm not saying that violence won't necessarily happen, right?
So what can we
I,
do to alleviate the circumstance of violence?
well, one thing we could do
It's
is
not about
What
it's
is
not
what
about
is the
disavow
circumstance? Oh,
violence.
let's I went
It's
two steps
about
deep. I
optics.
went two steps. Is my mic not working again?
Why do
Check
you
one.
do that?
I've been
you
having
interrupt me?
no,
Why do
no,
you
for
Actually,
sake of-
Erudite was
for sake of
speaking
trans-
first.
for sake of
So, yeah.
transparency,
You interrupt-
Actually,
for
not
sake
so
of-
Erudite
for
was
sake
speaking
of-
first.
for
So
sake of
maybe her mic's not working.
for sake of
Is it working?
transparency,
I guess
for
all
sake
our
of-
mics.
Oh
Okay,
my
Can you
God.
guys stop
Here we
being
go.
violent
All-
and
all of our
peacefully
mics-
approach
For
Joe Lewis?
sake of transparency, I've been having XLR problems all day. So I've been having 12 hours of teaching with my mic cutting in and out. So sometimes I talk and people can't hear me. I'm not trying to do it to be a cunt. I can be a cunt very easily, and Fabian knows that. So what were you saying before that weird interjection?
Erudite.
Me?
But he's on my side today, so we're chill.
What I'm trying to say is one of the things that you could do if you don't want too much violence, right? If you want to put off violence as much as possible, is one of the actions a movement could choose to do would be to disavow violence. It could be to say, if you assault staff members, if you run up to people and rip their masks off their face, if you piss and shit on the street, if you deface statues, that's not something we side with. And within our own group, we will absolutely speak against that. Just like BLM regularly did with rioters. They said, absolutely not. We do not stand with this. We are not for rioters, and they don't represent our ideas. That is a good action to engage in. And I'm just
Unless you
wondering
have-
if that could be
unless
something that we
your
do.
movement is advocating for violence at its core. I don't understand how it would be good for violent actions to not be condemned by your movement.
I just want to say,
Yeah, and nobody is
quick.
saying
Sorry.
nobody's saying that there's not going to be some amount of violence. It's inevitable in any one of these types of protests. But if you're trying to reduce the amount of it, then why wouldn't you just make a statement on it?
I just
I-
want to say real quick, I took a look at those studies. Now I just kind of did like a once over because he put two very large studies in. I had to unlock one of them. But the first study is basically, for the most part, showing that riots and things like that destroyed the neighborhoods that the riots were in, and they were disproportionately in black neighborhoods. So yeah, riots do damage. Duh, we didn't really need a study for that. And the second one was mostly talking about agenda seeding and attempting to use positive influences so that the media can garner attention of those positive influences like sit-ins and things like that. And was specifically saying that when there's more violence, the police crack down more, and was using this as evidence that the violence doesn't
I want to
work.
quote because you're misrepresenting that second one.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of what happens when you put like 2 30-page studies.
Okay, but
in,
this
and
is
then
from
just
the
say, like, it
abstract, which is a
proves me
paragraph.
right. And like either
So-
even talking of like, so please give me the quote.
Okay, protester initiated
Finally,
violence,
that I
by
pulled it out of it.
contrast, helped move news agendas, frames, elite discourse, and public concern towards social control. In 1968, using rainfall
Yeah, they're
it
using
goes on.
rainfall as a
Yeah.
system so that they can look at so that they can
Yes,
look
yes.
at other things that are
and
not
it
caused
goes
by
on, but that's the key there.
right, but it
towards
does
social
nothing
control.
to address any of the topics that people were bringing up to you that were clearly going over
Are
your
you
fucking head.
are you missing the point here? Like,
No,
am I
Wick,
not communicating
no.
clearly?
No, Wick, you're just not understanding. It went over your head, so I'm
No, I
explaining
don't
it
think
for you.
so. I think
If you
I'm
explain to me, Scott, what you heard me say, that might be helpful because I genuinely want to give you the benefit of the doubt that you are trying to
No,
understand us.
what is
I'm not
what
trying to
we're
be a dick.
talking?
What did you
talking-
hear me say, and then what are we not understanding?
I'm talking about what Wig and I were trying to explain to Wick, not per se what you were saying.
I
Yes,
think
because
me
I
and
will
Wick have
re-
been pretty on board though. So I don't know
Yeah.
if I sound by
Yeah,
everything, but I
that-
think we've been pretty consistent with each other.
That's fine. But again, I'm talking about what Wig and I were saying to Wick. But
Okay,
yes, if you
let me
you are-
repeat back to you what I heard you say, and maybe,
Why
like,
would
you can
you
tell me where
repeat
I got
back
it
to
wrong.
me
I
what I
can
said
you can
when
tell
I'm
me where
trying
I
to
got it
explain
wrong. Will
Why
that
don't
help?
you just explain the study?
Right.
Okay,
So
like I said.
the issue here, right, is that what we were saying is that peaceful protests work in conjunction with violent protests and have been
But
so.
that's not true. That again, like
Name
I said,
one movement.
as the
Please
study
name
said,
one
I just
movement
gave it
that
to you.
was-
I just read it to
Name
you.
one.
Are you not listening? Okay,
Name one.
protest initiated violence
Name
by
one.
contrast helped move news agendas.
Name one.
I'm
Name one.
fucking doing it.
No, you're not.
Frames,
You're just
I
repeating
posted
the
it.
study
Are
with
you
us.
Okay, well, here the way that this works, Scott, is that
Don't use
for him to
scientific
explain
studies
it to
can't
you.
understand.
Are you
For him to
are you
explain
in-
it to you, you have to actually give him some space to speak. So
But
He's
okay,
repeating the same quote.
Fabian, you're not being an honest actor here. And what you're
You call
doing
me
is
dishonest,
you're
but you don't know
ignoring
what the fuck
what
you're
is
doing.
very clearly data. You can say, well, I don't like
Just
that
switch
data
the fucking
because,
respect.
or I think that data
Come on now.
is.
Come on
Well,
now,
you
wait,
can
give me
attack
that for a
data,
minute.
here
but to act like I
doesn't
haven't
understand
given
the
you
science of
anything,
quoting.
or that it misses the point is frankly dishonest.
No,
And
what's
you're
dishonest?
lying right now. You're lying right now.
I would
You're
call you
fucking
dishonest,
lying.
but honestly, I don't think you're smart enough to understand the studies.
What
that
is
you're
this
voting on.
Dunning-Kruger effect shit that's going on right here? I really do not
I
It's a
don't know,
Twitch
understand.
battle.
I've been
Welcome
trying
back,
to
Wick.
do that, man. It's
That's true.
like
Welcome back, Wick.
it's like
Okay,
if I go around
let's go
and
to-
I start beating people's kneecaps so that like they pay me money, and then another person comes around and says, "Hey, we're a collective group that we'll take a little bit of your money and we'll prevent your kneecaps from being broken." That force of nature is ridiculous. They're gonna be really successful. they're gonna be peaceful.
Let's go. Let's go.
Again,
To,
you don't.
let's go to
You're
Doobie.
acting like
let's
this is necessary,
let's
but
go.
it's not.
Let's
It
go.
is
Not
just
necessary.
not
Let's
true.
go to Doobie and half baked takes.
Okay, so at first I gotta agree with Wick. I think you are misunderstanding the study, misrepresenting the study even, and I don't think it's fair to say that a Wick that to complain that it's 30 pages long and you don't really have the time to go through it and then speak as an authority on it at the same time. That doesn't make any fucking sense, right? So we know that you can look at the study, you can read it again if you'd like, but you can just look at what happened with BLM. Right, we know that when BLM protests got violent,
You didn't even look
right,
at the
this
fucking
was
study.
this was Yes, I did. I've read that study before.
Okay.
Right. So what they reference is how nonviolent protests, right, drove media and news coverage and public opinion toward positive opinions on civil rights, right? Whereas the opposite, right, violent protests, right, drove public opinion toward control, wanting to shut down the protests. Right, this, which is obviously like when the protests about civil rights, shutting down the protests is going to be a negative thing for the civil rights activists, right? So again, you can look at the BLM protests when they got violent. People,
like to address
public opinion turned against them, right, and they became less popular as a result. Now, it is true that when you have a large protest movement, violence is in some ways inevitable. You can't control every person, right? Of course. But I don't.
Our original argument.
Go ahead.
Because now
Finish
you're
it.
just
Yeah.
defending
What-
the study.
Doobie.
Yeah,
Finish your
What's
point.
okay? Because you disagreed with the study without understanding what the fucking study was. But if you want to go back to your original argument, if you can just make it really quickly for everybody here, that'd be really useful.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna repeat again because what you just said is no different than what I said, and I'm asking you to show either in this study or in any way, shape, or form how you can have the conversation around the question that we were asking or the thing that we were positing, which is that you have a violent protest does not happen in isolation. It's not like the civil rights movement was like Jews and blacks were both being disproportionately treated poorly, and they were having two different movements, and one was peaceful and one was violent, and the peaceful movement succeeded and the violent one didn't. What you have is a civil rights movement where there is an enmeshment between both the peaceful and the violent protests, where they're working in tandem. It's the same thing with the Vietnam protests, where you had the new left,
Okay,
right?
but I think
You had
you're okay. I understand now.
liberals, right?
Yeah,
that
I understand,
study's
but
not addressing that.
Okay, I understand now, but I don't think anybody here has disagreed with what you just said. But maybe they've disagreed with the framing of it because what you just said sounds a lot like they work in tandem toward the goal of passing whatever policy
Right,
or
they
these
work
political activists
together.
were looking for.
Yeah, and we're
Right,
just
but
saying
what
that
we're saying
one-
is that the violent side actually was counterproductive.
Right.
Yeah,
But you're
that's
trying
what I
to
disagree with.
separate
Here's the
But that's
question.
what
Here's
you
the question
disagree
that's maybe
with, but that's
important
what
for
the
us to
data
answer.
suggests. That's what the
So-
data
so-
suggests.
so-
I'm not
yeah,
trying to
so it
question
is
the
true-
You
decision.
don't understand
No,
basic-
I get that you're an
advocates-
ideological
our
zealot,
advocates-
Kevin.
Heather, you can't
Are advocates
can't
made
look at the
less
data
effective by
as
agitators, or
separating them.
do advocates require violent agitators to
But-
move their movement forward, or advocates
I
can they
don't-
be effective
I don't believe
on their
that-
own with a peaceful
I don't
engagement?
believe that they have to have this. I just believe that this is the most effective way to think about things because there's largely going to be violence. Like, yes, you can have a completely non-violent movement that gets something. Like when I was memeing and I said, okay, I want to change the color of Starbucks coffee cups. I don't need to kill people or have some sort of violence to have a violent campaign that's successful. All right, I could just, if I wanted to change I wanted to get someone fired because I thought they said something anti-Semitic, and then I had a whole campaign against that. That could be non-violent, and I could get a whole bunch of people on board. But when we're talking about movements that are larger, it's like Doobie was saying and others had said before that there's going to be a degree of violence, and it makes sense that that violent part of your movement, that you would distance yourself from that in order for you to be more appealable. So when you're looking in the situation that's described here, it doesn't look like anybody's going to like them. Even if they were to be quieter at this point and they were to disavow violence, it doesn't really seem like that would change people's minds about this movement because of what happened in the past. It would make sense that another splinter of this movement would form, and then those people would be really appealable because of this movement being successful and being disruptive. Like,
Okay, Wiggle.
that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so Wiggle. So
Do
what
you
you
have
said
evidence
was
of this? Do you have any evidence of this at all?
No, I'm like,
This
I'm
just
just,
feels
I'm
like you're
what-
like you're just like creating these like fictitious ideas of what maybe might be ideal, which is nice, and maybe we can
I'm not
theorize
Canadian.
about ways.
I don't
That
know what
has
the people of
nothing to do
Ottawa.
with it.
we don't need to-
Protests
I don't-
historically are about
No, but I'm
human
saying I don't
beings
know
and
what the people
human
in Ottawa.
psychology.
I don't know what the people in
I
Ottawa
just think
would say against that. Like, I don't
okay,
know.
but
what-
Wiggle, we don't need
Just
to go to
for
like
cop-
some hypothetical or an ideal, right? So we have somebody on the panel right now who said that
Yeah.
they should block off the port, they should cripple the economy of Canada, and then when if the police come by and try to stop this, they should resist the police with weapons, right? So
Yeah,
Wiggle, do you support that?
Nah, me personally, no, I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
asked
enough about
you.
what the people in Canada want to say that.
No,
Maybe if I
no,
did,
I'm
I
asking
would.
you. So Scott's
I
not
literally
Canadian,
just
so far as
answered
I
you.
know.
I said I don't
Okay.
know enough about the people in Canada to like talk about.
But would you?
You're literally talking about an American saying that yes, you should block off and cripple the GDP of Canada and make all of the people in Canada suffer for something that I
What
don't
if this
even
was
understand.
happening in?
Okay.
What if this was happening in America? Would you agree with it then?
that's all it took.
Wait, you have to
Well,
like
I-
think
I
about
do
it.
Yeah,
wanna- I
that's
do
how it
want
should
to-
be
I
when
do
you
wanna-
live in another
wait.
country.
So
No,
wait, hold on.
it's
Wait,
such a, like
so Wiggle.
arbitrary
As-
line in the sand.
Wow.
As a side note,
This is
as
like
a
protest
side
is about
note-
There's a thing
human
called
psychology.
principle.
As a
Wait,
side
wait,
note,
wait,
two
wait,
things.
wait a second.
You
Wait a
gonna
second.
let him answer
You think
or
it's
not?
Yeah.
you think
What?
it's
If it happened
confusing?
in America? What?
Two
No.
things.
You
Two
wait,
things.
wait. You guys think it's
Whoa.
confusing that I would
No.
think
No,
about it
thinking
more when
about-
it's
I
my
wanna
own
confuse it.
country.
No,
I'm
it's
trying
When
to,
it's my own
compliment
country.
you here. I'm trying to compliment Wig. The fact that you sat back and like, I'll consider that. Bravo. Like,
don't
I may
say that.
disagree with you
Okay, you just
totally,
did.
but bravo
Alright.
for actually thinking about things. That's a great thing.
Bravo
I
for
commend
doing
that.
the
That's a
bare
great
minimum
thing to
that
do.
everybody does.
Second-
Holy fuck.
Everybody does not do that.
Yeah, no,
Most
hurry up,
people are
hurry
dug
up.
in.
The
Most
no-
people
Most
dig their
people
fucking
offline
heels in
can
the
do
sand.
that, but we're dealing with a lot of variables online, right?
I'm
Like
sorry that I
latency,
acknowledge
the shitty
that
mics.
I'm sorry to acknowledge that people in different countries have different beliefs. So like
No,
yes,
no.
if I'm in America, I'm gonna be thinking
But-
differently than what I think Canadians should do because I'm not Canadian. And so in America, if you ask me the situation, it's very different. America is a different country. I'm not gonna advocate for what happens in Canada
So as
on the
soon as it
basis of what I
happens in a
want as an
different
American.
place, it's completely different.
It's very
Okay.
different.
Oh,
Yes.
Wiggle,
Yes.
Wiggle. Okay, wait, hold on,
Yes.
Wiggle. So it's troubling to me that you had to like think about that, right? So when
I
we're
didn't even
talking
get a
about this
chance. That was 2
situation.
seconds.
Wait, you
didn't
said
even say anything.
You went, Okay, but you shouldn't even have had to do that. Because what we're talking about is a bunch of truckers deciding to cripple the economy of the United States in that situation. So what Scott said is that if the police show up to try to remove these truckers that are crippling the
Yeah.
economy of the United States, and the truckers should resist the police with violence, right? Should shoot them.
Yes.
Right. So Wiggle, the fact that you even had to like think about that is troubling.
Yeah,
to me.
because of the level of success. Like, if there was a movement like that in the United States, you think it would be successful? You're the same individual
Does
within this panel
success
who said it
matter?
would be like, yes,
Why?
it does.
Why does
Because
the outcome matter here? If you're using violence and killing other people to get your ends, you really need to get the end you want. You really should take a good hard look at yourself. There
Nick,
should
thank
not,
you so
even
much
if
for
it's
becoming an
effective,
anarchist today.
But
even if
how
it's
can you- how
effective,
can you-
there are things
Wait.
we should not do.
Wait, can
How
I
can you
ask you
say
a
that? How
question?
can you say that?
So,
Look,
hold on, before you
look
do
at the
that,
situation.
Easy.
Look at
This
the,
is
look
easy
at the
clap.
situation
Even if
that we're in
torturing-
the United
even if
States right
torturing
now,
someone-
where we
even
had
if torturing someone
individuals.
got good intel, that is something we
Wick,
should not do.
Wick.
sorry,
Look
sorry,
at the
hold on, sorry,
situation
guy,
we're
hold
in
on,
right
hold on.
now.
I need to get Tap A takes. He's been waiting for forever.
Oh,
You have any?
No, you're good. Keep this going. Keep
Okay.
it going, everybody. I'm fine.
So look
Alright,
at
Keep going.
the
Keep the
situation.
punch going. I'm
Look at
throwing
the
punches
situation
as it
right
comes,
now.
We'll go
Johnny.
then Joe then Stardust. Okay.
look at the situation right now where like we had like a year ago we had January 6th occur. That was very violent, and then the whole country was in agreement in the United States on that this was a terrible thing, this should never happen, and they were like going to condemn all of this. And now within like several months later, because they didn't condemn it as harsh as they could have, now you have a groundswell of support in one particular party in the United States, the Republican Party, for the actions that happened during January 6th. There's a lot of people that committed violent acts that day and they've gotten more institutional power. So it's like I don't know how you're gonna tell me that like I have to ignore this and believe that I should just always not see like violence as some sort of option. Yes.
Do you
Because
not think
I
that the
think
right wing has
that there's
condemned
some.
that though?
Could I
The violence
jump
that.
in?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thanks. I think that there's some concerns about like actual like scientific literacy going on. Like things like generalizability seems to like not be broadly understood, as well as things like outliers, right? Like sometimes you do have outlier cases where things happen, right? Well, that's part of why like statistics are informative, and why the study that he's showing us is informative and indicative about like what seems to work within protests and what doesn't.
Yeah, so
Right.
like what are you gonna say to the outliers that are unsuccessful? That those people should just suck it up? Imagine
What?
if your data, yeah, so like
That
I'm
is not
saying,
what do you no, I think you're still missing my point, right? The idea
yeah,
is we're talking more at a meta level about what makes effective
yes.
protests and advocacy.
And do you think that the individuals
Outliers
in a specific
happen, but they
instance,
don't inform what broadly seems to be the most effective strategy. Of course, shit happens. But when you have a large amount of data that shows that broadly these seem to trend things in a really good direction, we shouldn't just disregard that because they're like we're being like our mom and we're like, but there's this one lady I know who said this thing, right? Like it, or that there's this one circumstance that happened. What we do is then empirically we would collect those outliers and try to see if maybe that they're a disparate group
do you
from the
believe
major
that this movement
analogous
will
group
be
that we're looking at.
successful if it tells people tomorrow that, hey, we're going to stop being as loud and we're not going to do, we're not going to have a blockade, and then they
I think
all
they
went
have a
home?
significantly higher chance of
Absolutely.
success.
Yeah,
Yes.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yes.
I would chalk that up to
100%.
fucking yeah, they would, because then the protests can actually keep going and the PR stays in their favor.
And the
Yeah,
entirety
so
of the city won't
millions of dollars
fucking
behind
hate
them, too.
them.
And
So
and
You
they
know,
let's
the
be
screw
clear.
entirety of
shit
the
out of
city,
things.
like if the people who live there absolutely fucking hate these people, right? Then they're not really going to get anything done, are they?
And
So
let's be clear, they have some moral ground to stand on when it comes to things like what happened to them during the GoFundMe thing. Even Joe said that was something that concerns him. And I don't want to speak for Joe here, and I
that
won't.
should concern
But
everybody
it
on the
should
panel.
concern everyone. And so if they tamp down on the noise, if they tamp down on the blockades, if they disavowed violence, and they could use that as kind of their PR front, like look at what they did to us. They're going to get much more sympathy. They're going to get from all sides in the issue
Yeah.
here. It's going to be more successful. Now, will it 100% be effective and work? I don't know. Like I can't tell the future, but they have a significantly higher chance.
Yeah, and then what stops individuals from saying, look at the violence that did happen. Look at these people, they're advocating for this, and look at the damage that they've already caused.
But there's a difference between look at the violence that did happen and look at the violence that's happening.
But what
Did
stops
happen. Hey,
another
we fixed that
movement?
shit.
I mean,
But what
also,
Versus
stops?
it's
Why does it have
happening
to be
and we
one
don't care.
movement? Why does
what
it
you
have to
can say
be
in
one
response,
specific? Yeah.
what you can say in response to that is clearly they don't support the broader movement doesn't support that because they came out and they condemned it and they tried to prevent that, right? But if that doesn't even happen, then it's like, well, yeah, they really don't give a fuck about the citizens who reside in that city.
So what if there's a splintering within the group that says, hey, we're the ones that condemn that stuff, and we're the rational people within this movement. We condemn those violent acts. That's the larger movement. That's why we split apart. Do you believe that they would be really successful?
Yes, because they're denouncing, but the violent group would naturally hold that group back unless they denounce them as strongly as possible. That's what the evidence is showing.
That's why you have to disassociate yourself, or you're going to get lumped in with the violence. Unless your movement,
Wiggle, he's
unless your
talking-
movement is based in violence, then you probably should be denouncing the violence that occurs, because you want to keep peaceful protest peaceful for the positive PR. I can't believe
he's
that we're
talking
even
about
having
the-
to argue about
Joe Lewis.
He's talking about the distance that Democrats do to Black people who advocate for police brutality and other types of changes in society. Wick, I have a question for you.
Go for it.
And maybe this is where we'll find like where you're coming from. Okay, are you familiar with Ashada Shakur?
Not terribly, unfortunately.
I'll give you a TLDR. She was arrested in my state, and allegedly she murdered a state trooper. The medical evidence suggested that she had no part in the murder of this trooper at all. New Jersey state troopers tortured her in police custody, and then the eventuality was that she was sentenced to life imprisonment up in North Jersey. The Black Liberation Army decided to put matters into their own hands and break into the facility that she was in and directly take her out. And now she's in Cuba. Do you agree with the Black Liberation Army's actions there? Was that a successful example of direct action?
If how you framed it is what actually happened, then I think that they have it's understandable. I would have looked at other means to do so before doing that. But
Well, Rick,
again,
how
I
would you?
don't know. I don't
Let's
know
stop
enough
right.
about the situation. This
Let's
is
stop.
this is something I can't really
Let's
comment on
then.
because I don't know the situation.
Well, I just explained it to you. So let's
But okay, you
elaborate.
gave me one view of it. You
I
did
Let's
have
not
a strong
elaborate
feeling that
on
your
that.
framing of this might be a little skewed,
Yeah,
or
like I
that
don't
story
like,
might be a
and this is a
little
key here.
different
This is
than
a
what
key
you
here.
framed
I'm
Like
it.
giving an
Joe,
example
Joe,
of
I do not trust your framing of the issue 100%, and I
why.
shouldn't. And you shouldn't trust my framing of issues
Because that
100%
lady's
because you
a
just
cop
shouldn't
killer.
do that. You should look into things yourself. You shouldn't just take things at face value. You should do deep, like, wow, that's concerning. What you said, wow, I want to look into that, and I will do that on my own time. And perhaps, and it's very possible that what you said, 100% true, that maybe you're understating the case, but I don't know. And I cannot, it would be irresponsible of me because I don't know to act like I do. And that's a problem we have on these panels is people who don't know what they are talking about act like they do know what they are talking about. And I try very hard not to do that.
So great.
And,
And the
and let's
framing,
be real, Joe. You have a
if we
very
were
long
to,
history of dishonestly framing things like this, right? So
if we
this
were to
this
believe,
woman
I'm
did kill the cop.
I'm still
bare
having an
minimum.
exchange with Doobie Way. I'm still having an exchange with Wick Doobie. I'll let
You may
you
continue.
respond. Thank you very much. So Wick, let's say everything I just laid out to you, you did the research and that was true. This is an example of direct action. You described that you would look into other ways. So what is another way that you would advocate for, in this case, a political prisoner to be let out of a facility?
Well, we have appeals process. We have we can go to the government. We can go. Joe Biden could pardon the person. There are many different ways than direct violence. There are many different ways. They may not work. They may not be effective. I don't know. We don't know because did they try them? I don't think they did. But I don't know.
Well, they
They
did.
have.
They
They may
did.
have. I don't know.
They did. I mean, that's why the poster's on my wall.
I can't.
But
I honestly can't see. Like I
There's
can't
no
see
way
either
that we
it's
could
all-
have known.
it's
You
all
didn't
good.
even
Yeah.
like outline that in your framing. I'm
So,
glad that they did.
Just for
Yeah.
a quick little update on this discussion about calling out and violence and stuff. I hadn't seen this and I was trying to get my chat to do it. Some of the acts that these people are referencing, that the media is referencing, the reason they're not, quote, calling out this violence is because they're saying that they have records that they will release, that it was truckers from the convoy that called it out and called the police, and that these were not actually done by people in that regard. And that's why they're not denouncing those acts of violence, is because they were the ones that called the police and got those individuals arrested and other acts of property damage. So the lack of calling out of violence is because they believe that it was not actually their movement at all that did that, and that instead the media is simply calling out crime that is
Okay, but that's
occurring
the
in the same area, and so there's a dispute about whether
It's
or
the
not
same
they
damn thing.
actually did it.
That's the same
Um,
damn thing. Saying, "Hey, we didn't do this. This other group did." It's the same damn thing.
Right. Well, what they're saying is this other group is doing it. We called the police. We will
Okay.
provide that documentation, but the media
That
is
would
trying to
be
blame it on us.
that would be denouncing violence, which has been
Right.
our point the entire time.
Which is
Right,
great.
so I just wanted to
Also,
give
I
an update.
recently learned that they were approached and asked to stop honking, and I'm not confident this is just like grapevine, but it sounds like they more or less have stopped doing that. Again,
Yeah.
if that's what they do, I'm instantly more favorable towards their position because they're not like actually damaging people's ears anymore. So I'm like, great, that's good. I'm now immediately more in favor of the protest. Much more sympathetic to their plight. Because Scott, I think what you're raising of like concerns about like there are actual concerns about like how long do these mandates go? How long does this continue, right? There are legitimate mental health problems that are seriously like a massive concern. And I'm definitely sympathetic to those things, right? The problem is that like when we're talking about what makes effective protest, we have to be kind of insular and focused around that. But like this idea of like maybe that there can be some good come of it, right? Things like better mental health access, things like certain individuals being able to like access economic needs and stuff like that. Those are all good things, and I'm not even saying I'm inherently opposed to everything within the protest. I'm opposed to protest not denouncing violence.
I appreciate you trying to extend the olive branch, but I'm against them on principle, not based off of a period of time. And I don't think that the positive things that would come from it would be more government programs. But I understand your position.
Well, I guess we can just end that here. Oh,
Also, well, there's one thing I did want to talk about GoFundMe because a lot of people have talked about it. So just real quick, GoFundMe was approached by police and spoken to several times by the state, right? So this idea that it's like completely GoFundMe's fault in this situation when it's obviously the pressures of the cathedral coming down on GoFundMe and that there's a mixture of that. I think it's important that we understand that this is, of course, them trying to avoid pressure and avoid issues when dealing with the Canadian government because the Canadian government doesn't want these people funded. But you can go to, sorry, real quick. You can go to Give, Send, Go if you would like to support the cause, and they've already gotten 5.5 plus $1 million.
You shouldn't go there. That's actually like a virus link. Do not go there.
Fabian, you could just say that they should probably directly support the individuals who are there on the ground. They don't have to go through some like third party application to do so. That's how they got fucked by GoFundMe. I think we probably agree here, though.
Yeah. I mean, but not everybody is that skilled at like touching grass and knows what communities to work with or how to actually do that. For some people, it's.
I mean, there's a woman literally giving out dominoes to people at the convoy. I think one of the problems is that people want to look for like the easy way to contribute and keep their kind of their hands off from it. So I think that there is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of conservatives are scared to have their political opinions and things like out there public too. I mean, for some people, it's easier because of their job and things like that. To just give some money. And that's
it's just privilege in that aspect. Yeah.
I mean, I do agree. I mean, I don't know if it's privilege to be afraid to lose
it's pretty
your job.
disgraceful that people would fund these jackasses.
Of course, it's privilege. Like there's you wouldn't acknowledge that there's a privilege to saying like, oh, I don't want to be there on the ground for these individuals, but I'll give them monetary support. Like there's a level of privilege to that. Like for some people,
isn't there privilege in the opposite
even
direction?
in your framing, even in your framing, Fabian, these are like lives on the line and individuals like livelihoods and stuff like that. So I would imagine that people are really passionate about that. They would be on the ground and helping them. But
what if you don't have the privilege? What if you don't have the privilege? What if you don't have the privilege of enough money to go to these things?
I would love.
What if you can't afford a fucking plane ticket? What if you can't afford a hotel? What if you can't afford to do all these things? That seems like
to be able to go to these protests on the ground is a privilege because a lot of people just can't take time off their jobs. They cannot sacrifice their work because they're working 2 jobs. They can't take a day off.
I'm not sure.
That is a privilege to be able to
I'm
go
not
to
sure
these
this is worth arguing, and not at the very end. We had like a little consensus going on. Then it's like, no, fuck you and your GoFundMe. Okay, all right. Well, so let's move on to.
I want people to focus on the real problem, the state.
Second.
Yeah, they have a right to protest. Going there isn't a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to be in a position to go there.